Ready? So I'll just speak for a few minutes and then we can open up for Q&A if you like. So first and foremost, thank you all so much for being here. My name is Abdullah Hammoud and I have the privilege of being mayor of this city. The reason we're here today, this is actually just one stop on a tour throughout the whole city that I'm making with my directors. And we're making that tour for a few reasons. First and foremost, for an administration to want to serve the city, you have to understand the city. And as somebody who was born and raised in the city, I thought that I would give them my experience growing up, working our way from the west to the east to the south. So they have an understanding and a bird's eye view of what residents are facing in each part of town. As it pertains to Fairlane Mall, this is the midtown of our city. This can actually be the heartbeat of our city, the part that connects the west and the east. Our city is very unique. You know that according to the last census, we experienced a 12% growth. We're a city where residents love to live, play, work, raise their family, and spend their dollars in the city. And it's very unique, and that's why in the recession that we had a decade ago, Dearborn was not as affected as other cities were, because residents are loyal to the businesses and vendors that we have located here. We brought our directors here today because, all of our directors, because what we envision in this part of town is not just an economic development project. It's a housing project. It's an affordable housing project. This is a public health project. This is an environmental sustainability project. This is a flood mitigation project. This is a parks and recreation project. We can reimagine this space to convene all the developers in the area that are coming in, to pull them to the table. This is a responsibility that we think the administration has to actually be the convener of all the developers that are coming forward. And obviously, as you heard with the news of a new potential owner that's coming forward to acquire Fairlane Mall. We organized this tour before that announcement was made. It just happened by coincidence that we're here today. But we're hopeful that we can be the ones who pitch the collective vision for what we want to see out of the midtown of our city, a vision that residents have been clamoring for, to shatter the stereotypes that exist pertaining to Fairlane Mall, because this isn't a mall that's going under. This is actually a mall that I think has great opportunities ahead. With me is actually Danny Fayyad, who's the general manager. One of the reasons I'm hopeful for the potential vision for this part of town is because of the relationship that exists between Danny and myself. We grew up living across the street from one another. We played football at a corner park with one another. And I think those relationships give way to strong partnerships will help improve the quality of life for our residents. The sea of parking lots that you see, we imagine this to be a future green space that helps alleviate some of the flooding issues that are ongoing in our city. That gives ways to connectivity of hiking and biking trails between this side of the road and the cross with the River Rouge Trail near the Henry Ford Estate. This is a unique midtown that connects Michigan Avenue to Ford Road and can give way to connect the West Dearborn to the East Dearborn. The reason we stopped here as well was in my first 7 weeks in office, the floodgates of developers have been walking through our doors, acquiring the parcels of land not only at Fairlane Mall, but in the surrounding buildings and structures. And what they're asking is, what is the city's vision for what this can become? And that is what spurred our initial idea of coming out here to imagine the space together, because it's more than just Hammoud's vision. It's our director's vision. It's our community's vision for the city. And so we're super excited about the opportunities that can be, and we're hopeful that we can be the conveners that make this more than just an idea, but actually work towards making it a reality for all of our residents.
What's your time frame?
So there's no time frame right now. What we're doing is we're actually working with our economic development team, our Parks and Rec team, and all of our directors to come up with a concrete vision that we can make a pitch to all the developers in the area, and then use the tools we have to encourage that level of development to reimagine this whole midtown space.
Any plans on financing? I mean, it's great. It's obviously wonderful to have a vision, when it comes to sort of creating it. Is there a sense of how to pay for it?
Yeah, so there's a few ideas. One, we know that the state and the county and the city are flush with resources given the American Rescue Plan Act dollars. Secondly, Amanda McClanahan, who is our COO, comes from MEDC as our former CFO and COO. And there are many opportunities in those relationships that can provide the incentives that can spur such a development. Then as a local municipalities, we have the ability to use the economic tools at our disposal to help direct that level of investment that we're looking for.
Now, how likely is it that the Midtown logo is going to catch on? Because we've always been East and West Dearborn geographically. What are you going to do to promote it as Midtown?
There's as somebody who grew up in East Dearborn, right? You're familiar with that type of language growing up here your whole life. But I think what we need to do is create a bridge and connection between all parts of town. And we think this midtown of the city of Dearborn can be just that. You see some of the new apartment structures that have gone up because of the student housing needs with University of Michigan Dearborn and Henry Ford College across the street. We have been approached by many other developers who want to bring new affordable housing and apartment units to this region, to this area. And so we're hopeful that if we work and get community input and you get their buy-in into our collective vision for the area, that there's nothing that we can't accomplish.
Do you know who the buyer is? Any information on the buyer?
I'm not able to speak to who the buyer is at this point in time.
Are you having any conversations with them? Is there a dialogue happening?
So there hasn't been a dialogue that occurred directly with the prospective purchaser, but there has been dialogue that's been happening between myself and Danny, who's the general manager of the area, prior to any announcement having been made. This was just out of a relationship that has existed for decades now. I first reached out to Danny following the election, saying, hey, let's talk Fairlane Mall and what can become of the entire region. This is 110 acres. It's a fairly large footprint in the city of Dearborn. You're talking 8,500 parking spaces, roughly, more parking spaces than that's needed. And so when you talk about the ability to solve many issues, giving way to biking and hiking trails, giving way to green space and more permeable services to help with the flooding issues, this is where we can start.
What percentage of the mall is filled?
85% right now.
85.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any thought on potentially demolishing a portion of it in order to create housing? Or
Yeah.
what are your thoughts there?
Our thoughts is, the uniqueness of the mall is owned by one entity and each anchor store is owned by that store independently. And so what we want to do is work with those stakeholders to draw that collective vision. We do imagine a space where, for example, a Sears might turn into a mixed-use facility that provides a direct feeder into the mall. We do imagine working with those stakeholders to create those types of spaces.
And if I can ask a follow-up, just looking at how people shop and how trends have changed, especially with online shopping, there's some folks who believe these big box stores, those days are numbered, if you will.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts when you're reimagining this area?
I think, sometimes going to the mall is just to hang out. It's a recreational activity. It's an ability to walk in the mall for exercise. And so we imagine working with our partners to give room to some of those new spaces to come forward. What I can tell you is, as somebody who grew up here, this mall, the stereotype is this mall is going under. If you speak to some of the anchor stores, for example, Macy's announced reinvesting in their store a few months back because this is one of the top grossing Macy's in the country. And so that stereotype that this mall is dead is actually not the truth. The uniqueness of Dearborn, again, is that we're a community that likes to spend our dollars in the city. We're a community that likes to support our vendors and support our businesses. And we think this can be an incubator for even more businesses for our community residents.
In terms of the vision, how does it fit with the needs of the West and East Dearborn residents?
Yeah, there are many needs. We know that we have a housing shortage happening not only in Dearborn but all across the state. And so given the empty built parcels on the surrounding of Fairlane Mall and what we can potentially have here, we know we can address a housing issue. We know we can address an affordable housing issue. We know that a lot of residents are asking for more forms of mobility and connectivity in terms of biking and hiking trails. This dissects right through the center of our city, and yet you have no a way to connect safely between the west part of town and the east part of town. This can be just that. We know that you can connect to the Ford and Mercury area, where 25 acres have just been sold by Ford Land. And there's ability to connect the developments that are happening in the entire region through this parcel of land. We know that we have flooding issues that are impacting residents primarily in the east and south end of our city, yet here is a sea of pavement. And so if we collect and absorb water upstream, it gives room to our ability downstream to make more changes there. So again, this is a project that is more than just economic development. It's public health, it's environmental sustainability, it's mobility, and that's why all the directives are here collectively for us to draw from one another and have that cross-departmental communication.
What's the update on the Hyatt?
I know right now at this point they're working with the utilities to get some of the electricity and stuff running through, and they're moving forward with their plans so far as is. More than that, we don't have at this time. They're still working through the plans.
Mixed hotel apartments or strictly apartments?
I don't know if they've made an adjustment. From our understanding, we think it's largely apartments, and so we're waiting to hear more from them.
In terms of costs, has anyone talked about what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Very
very expensive.
Yeah, we know it'll be costly. But again, we have economic tools and we are flush with resources as a city, county, and state. And so in terms of costs, we think that if we get the developers bought into a collective vision in the community, if we get the city, county, and state all bought in, that the costs for each of those entities won't be as great. But we think that we're putting those numbers together. We're working with our economic development team, our planning team, to come up with the vision and what we think the estimated cost might be.
And the future developer owner is on board with this?
So we're hoping that, in order for them to be on board, you have to have a strong vision on paper. And so that's what we're working on the clock to create. So by the time they come in, we're prepared to convene and have that conversation on day one.
Do you have any sense of a timeline?
I think based on the announcement that was made, they're looking at potential closing of purchase in this time next month.
No, but what about the timeline for the overall vision, though?
At this point in time, we don't have a timeline.
What would your message be to an everyday Dearborn resident
Yeah.
who's seeing this and maybe has wondered what would happen with this area? What's your message?
I think the message is there's proactive leadership at City Hall, that we're no longer sitting on the sidelines. We have our bulldog cap on, and we want to be the ones to drive the conversation. In the past, what's happened is we've just left it to developers to pick and choose what they're doing all across the city. There hasn't been any community benefit in a lot of those agreements that have occurred. We're flipping the script. If developers want to operate here in the city of Dearborn, we want to make sure that we're partnering and that there's an element of community benefits that's happening with each and every single project all throughout the city, because that's the way that we have to operate. If they're seeking economic incentives and tools, well, we want to seek community benefits in those agreements. And that hasn't happened in the past, but we're making sure it happens now.
We'll do one more question, if that's okay.
So could residents see
go
a
ahead.
bond increase or a tax increase to help finance some of this as well?
We don't foresee anything at this time as it pertains to bond or tax increases.
Thank you so much for showing up, everyone. Really
Yeah.
appreciate it. If you haven't gotten a press kit yet, I'm happy to give you just some fast facts. I got you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, long time no see. How are you doing?
How are you?
Good to see you, man.
Good?
Yeah.
How's everything?
How are you doing?
Good. Staying busy, man. I'll see you. تحياتنا لكم متابعينا من قناة شو الأخبار. معكم حسين عيشة، موجودين إلى جانب فيرلين مول. أكيد اليوم كان عمدة مدينة ديربورن عبد الله حمود عم بيتحدث عن الخبر اللي هو إنه فيرلين مول تم شراؤه من شخص معين ديفلوبر، وبالتالي يتكلمون عن مستقبل هذا المتجر أو المتاجر الموجودة بفيرلين مول. ما عطوا كتير تفاصيل فيما يتعلق من هو يعني الشاري لهذا المول، شو الفكرة العامة، بس انحكى انه الى حد ما الفكرة العامة منا كتير واضحة، بس انه رح يضل مول يمكن يصير في شوية هاوسينج بقلبه مثل بيوت وهيك شغلات، بس ما في فكرة واضحة لحد هلا. بس الخبر انه فيرلين مول مباع، في شاري جديد، في افكار جديدة عم بيناقشوها، وعم بيقول سابقا كانوا الانفسترز اللي بيجوا يعملوا اللي بدهم اياه بالمدينة، هلا لا، مطلوب منهم انه هن يتحدثوا مع السيتي ويعملوا خطط تتناسب مع الخطة اللي هي بدها اياها يعني المدينة. فيعني هيدي كان الخبر بشكل عام من عمدة مدينة ديربون عبد الله حمود. عبد الله can we have you for رح نحاول ناخذ انترفيو مع عبد الله بشكل سريع يعني، بس لحتى نفهم منه exactly يعني. اكيد عمدة مدينة ديربون عبد الله حمود رح يكون معنا لحتى بس نفهم exactly شو الموضوع بشكل عام يعني بما يتعلق بهيدي Abdullah, thank you for joining us. We're live on WhatsApp Media Network. I know before you took on the responsibility as a mayor, you've heard a lot of complaints for the crimes that were going on. I think it's one of the most areas that you guys keep you busy in the Dearborn Police Department. How is that going to be addressed? And is this new development is going to solve the issue that we're having here?
I think there are a lot of negative stereotypes attached to Fairlane. Unfortunately, we know that this transit center is actually the second largest in Southeast Michigan, the first being the Detroit bus stop. And so I think what we want to do is have a respectful bus stop area for folks. Those are patrons that are wanting to come to the mall and spend their dollars here. That's a benefit that not many cities have. As it pertains to the mall and the vision that we have, it is a mall that is safe. Most folks know that. I still patronize this mall. It's one of the best Foot Lockers in the state of Michigan. And so we're hoping that the development that we spur reinvigorates the residents to come back to the mall who have not. and also invite folks from outside of the city to come to this mall. This is a very unique asset that we have as City of Dearborn. It's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. So now our goal is how do we take some of the community's input and make it a reality? How do we give further room for this region to become a convening space of all parts of town?
So you talked about the stereotypes. How do you imagine or how do you envision a partnership between the private sector and the government to solve the issue, to promote for such businesses? You know what I mean?
I think it's when you create a convening space, when you start addressing some of the fundamental community issues. If we eliminate some of this paving and create green space for interaction and festival spaces, if you have housing units that are coming up, you're automatically creating a residential feeder into the mall. And so we have a lot of opportunity to do that.
He's taken. So basically, you guys going to be sitting with the buyer. I've heard something new from you. I heard something that it's not anymore whatever the investor want to do, it's their say. You want more of a city input in what's the plan is going to be.
I think what's happened in the past is we've kind of defaulted to the developer to drive in the conversation. We're flipping the script. We want to drive the conversation knowing that we have the community's best interest in mind. And so our question is, it's usually developers, it's not just about Fairlane malls, but the partners in the area, on the outskirts, are typically asking for some sort of incentive to spur that development. There's no more handing out the incentives without an element of community benefit to it.
That's the question. That's the question. I know.
I gave him the last.
Okay.
No, thank you so much.
This is the press kit.
اوكي هيدي هي اكيد متابعتنا اخواننا من فيرلين مال. كان معكم حسين هاشم واكيد استاذ جليل البصري من وراء الكاميرا. الى اللقاء.